Welcome back to the Rapid Response series, Did You Know? CIUS Answers, a daily response to your questions about Russia's war against Ukraine. With us today is Dr. Volodymyr Kravchenko, a historian with the Department of History, Classics, and Religion at the University of Alberta, Director of Contemporary Ukraine Studies Program with CIUS. Volodymyr, the question we have for you today, why is Ukraine so important to Russia?
That's a very difficult question. In the middle of the Russian aggression against Ukraine, I will be talking about Russia and its history. First, I believe that history matters in this part of the world. And I am convinced that without history, one cannot understand what is going on the territory of the former Soviet Union, dominated by Russia. Of course, as a Ukrainian, I am deeply involved and observer. Many of us have been really shocked with the open, unprovoked war. And many of you keep asking why and what to expect next. I will try to answer at least some of these and other questions in two mini lectures, not in one. The first one is about Russia, and the second one will be about Ukrainian-Russian relations in historical context. This is the first lecture. I started with the question of what is Russia and what is Russian identity? Is it really a riddle wrapped in a mystery inside an enigma, as Winston Churchill once put it? From my point of view, absolutely not. Those who used to quote Churchill often forget the next sentence in his dictum, which is, but perhaps there is a key. That key is Russian national interest, the end of the quote. Churchill was right. Russia is better understood in terms of national interest or simply nationalism, which indeed is of special kind. Timothy Snyder recently expressed his idea that Russia is a new country which emerged from the Soviet shell. Indeed, Russia never existed before in her current borders. However, from my perspective, Russia is a very old country. Russian nationalism is not a modern phenomenon. Russian identity is an archaic phenomenon, since it's based on the two main pillars, empire and church. A very old idea, but who told us that all old ideas are dead? They are pretty much alive. Russia always was an empire, modeled on its Byzantine predecessor. What is really unusual is the persistence of the imperial phenomenon in Russian history. From this perspective, Russian history is of cyclical, not linear nature. Muscovite Empire of Tsar Ivan the Terrible, Russian Empire of Nicholas I, Soviet Empire of Stalin, they are all empires. Any empire is dangerous because expansion is natural for any empire. Usually the imperial expansion is justified and motivated by the religious zeal. Russian Orthodox Church is very traditional, very orthodox indeed. It never went through a process of deep reformation. Today, it is as it was 1,000 years ago. Russian Orthodoxy is the second pillar of Russian identity. To be Russian means to be Orthodox. Russian Orthodox fundamentalism is very similar to Muslim fundamentalism. Perhaps you remember Putin's strange statement he made in 2018 during an annual session of the Valdai Discussion Club. He made many statements before and after that. All of them sometimes sound strange, but this one is of special interest. Putin announced that in case of a nuclear conflict, Western enemies will croak, but we, Russians, will be in heaven as martyrs. Мы, как мученики, попадем в рай, а они просто сдохнут. Despite of a cynicism and vulgar language, which is Putin's usual style, it sounds like Osama bin Laden. It is close to Muslim belligerent fundamentalism. It simply demonstrates how deeply Russian mentality is rooted in the archaic world. My next point is about Russia and the Soviet Union. If, according to Putin, the dissolution of the Soviet Union was a tragedy, who was responsible for that? Who is to blame? It was Russia, of course. Who else was able to do it? Who else was able to destroy the Soviet Union? Tiny Estonia with 1 million people, small Georgia with 3 million people. It was not even Ukraine, the second largest Soviet republic. Soviet Ukraine's communist Kravchuk was more than reluctant to proclaim national independence. He asked all of us to stay calm. In the Soviet Union, Russian Federation was the strangest administrative entity. It was the only Soviet republic without local branch of the Communist Party. It was the only Soviet republic without national capital. Moscow was a capital of the Soviet Union. Russian Federation was not a national republic. It remained a small copy of the former Russian Empire. In other words, it was an artificial creature. As the Soviet Union was slowly declining, Russian nationalism grew stronger and stronger. And finally, in the 1991, the explosion of Russian imperial nationalism and the end of the Soviet Union, post-Soviet. As a former Soviet republic deprived of some important national institutions, Russian Federation started process of re-identification. In search of a new identity, Russian post-Soviet elites turned to pre-Soviet intellectual legacy and the legacy of Russian emigration. It was exactly that kind of nationalism which emerged before and during the dissolution of the Russian Empire. It was represented by the proto-fascist mass organization known as the Black Hundred, Черная Сотня. Most of those who shared their ideas found political asylum abroad. Among them was Ivan Ilyin, Russian religious and political philosopher, and recently, several months ago, Putin admitted that he considers Ilyin one of his guru, even spiritual father. Ilyin proclaimed the necessity of a totalitarian state, anti-Western attitude, and many other things, which one can easily recognize in the political regime established in Russia by the former KGB and military nationalists. Russia and the West, don't be fooled by Russian European-like appearance. Russian system of values is fundamentally non-European and non-Western. Western observers oriented on Moscow and some other big cities. However, they are less familiar with the Russian province. A couple of days ago, Belgorod students of the local institute were asked by the Radio Liberties correspondent about the war in Ukraine. The answer was, if they want to survive, they need to join us. It's about Ukrainians. All I'm saying is that Russian society is also responsible for what Putin is doing with Ukraine, for what he did with Syria, Georgia, Chechnya. However, it was far, far away from European borders. All these years, the West was for sale. Western football clubs, Western art galleries, Western shameless politicians like Herr Schroeder, everything. The sooner Western elites will stop it, the better. The sooner the West will stop reading Francis Fukuyama and start reading Huntington or Brzezinski, the better. It is time to get rid of many illusions inspired by the Enlightenment and the global technologies. History is back, geopolitics is back, and we need to be ready to meet them. Thank you.
Thank you, Volodymyr. We will be back tomorrow with another episode of Did You Know? CIUS Answers.